God, no, you don't. Screw you, bear. Screw you, bear. You too. Screw you too, bear. Screw you. Hello and welcome back to Skyrim A through Z lot mods, lore, and more. I am, as always, Inquisitor Ara, and I will be your guide through the lore-rich world of Nirn. And this week, we're going to take a look at the race. Oh yes, the master race. The race that all people want to be, the Nords. Because, of course, we're in Skyrim, and we can't have Skyrim without Nords. Okay, so the Nords, also known as the Children of the Sky, mostly only to them, are a fierce, strong, and very independent race. Skyrim is their home, obviously, you already knew that. They are the direct descendants of the Atmor people, and the Atmorans came from Atmora, which was a continent north of Skyrim. So we'll talk about a little bit about Skyrim first. Now, Skyrim was first land believed to be settled by the race of man, being the Atmorans. It is bordered on the south by Cyrodiil, to the west by High Rock and Hammerfell, and to the east by Morrowind. It is mountainous and cold, a very, very harsh landscape that has bred a very hardy group of people who are extraordinarily resistant to that cold weather, both they have the physical cold weather and actually magical cold. So they have that going for them. Now, to understand the Nords, you really kind of do have to go back to their roots. You kind of have to go all the way back to Atmora. Now, Atmora is a continent that is north of Tamriel, across the Sea of Ghosts. And the name is likely a bastardization of the elven word Altmora, which means Elderwood, although nobody's really sure why that is, as it's believed there were no elves on Atmora. Maybe that's just what the elves decided to call it upon seeing the hardy stock of people that Atmora had given birth to. When the Atmorans came to Tamriel, Atmora was plagued by a civil war. Between that and an event called the Freezing, which was a sudden near catastrophic climate shift in Atmora that made it absolutely uninhabitable, they decided to leave. And of course, the person that we all think of when we think of the Atmorans finally coming to Skyrim is Ysgramor. Ysgramor and his family. So this happened in the Merithic era. Now, most of Skyrim's history can be pretty much lumped together because they fight a lot of things, and those fights tend to ignore the standard rules of eras. So they went through the Merithic and the First Era, and that was mostly Ysgramor's line right there. Ysgramor leads his people to Skyrim, and they live in peace at first with the Mer that they discovered there, who were the Snow Elves, and the Dwemer. What they brought with them, though, was the worship of the dragons. Now, the dragons were in Atmora. The dragons were obviously in Skyrim, and they were worshipped as gods by the Nordic people, because, well, let's face it, it's a dragon. It's pretty damn godlike, and even Paarthurnax will tell you that's kind of really in their nature, is to conquer and to rule, and this was their way of doing that. The dragons got so powerful that they were terrifying. They're terrorizing the people. And people, the Nords, eventually rose up in rebellion in a time called the Dragon War. Now, the dragons, they're beneath all this messy fighting. So they took amongst their priests some of the most powerful and the most dedicated, and they granted unto these priests powerful artifacts. We know those, of course, as the Dragon Priests' masks. The Dragon Priests were tyrannical, and eventually they ended up basically taking the war to the Nords. The dragons didn't really do much of the fighting. They left it to their Dragon Priests. Eventually, though, the Dragon Priests were overrun, and they were killed, and that's when the Nords started attacking the dragons, and when the dragons realized they were going to be defeated, they they disappeared. They took off. They went up to their high places in their homes, and they disappeared completely off the face of the planet. And that was when, about the same time that the Nords started meeting some of the other races on Tamriel. So they started running into more of the Altmer and the Cyrodiil humans and things of that nature, and that's when they were exposed to the religion of the Eight, the Divines, the Aedra, and the Daedra. So after the dragons were defeated, the dragon priests were killed off, but peace, as is with the Nords, only manages to last for a short time, because that's surely like in the first era, that was when the infamous Night of Tears took place. Now, nobody's really sure what caused the Snow Elves to do this, but what is known is the Snow Elves attacked the then capital city of Skyrim, Sarthal, and sacked it due to the presence of something powerful and dangerous beneath the city that they did not want the humans to get their hands on. They literally came into the city at night, and they killed everybody they could get their hands on, and those people that they couldn't fled, amongst them Ysgramor and his family. Now, this is the seed. This is the seed of the long-standing hatred that the Nords have for elvenkind. It doesn't make a difference what kind of elf you are. If you are an elf, you are generally not welcome in Skyrim. So, after the Night of Tears, Ysgramor and his family left, and the Snow Elves buried the city. Now, we know from doing the quests in Skyrim that what they found beneath Sarthal was the Eye of Magnus, and we know how dangerous that is. So, you can understand why they didn't want anybody to get their hands on it, but they kind of did turn really violent really quickly, and that ended up biting them in the ass, because a few years later, Ysgramor comes back with the 500 companions and begins to systematically just decimate the Snow Elves until he managed to either kill them all off or drove them underground. This is when the Snow Elves, because we're not calling them Falmer yet, this is when the Snow Elves sought help with the Dwemer, and eventually led to their downfall and their corruption and into their changing into the Falmer that we all know and love to kill today. The next major events in Skyrim and Nordic history were the Skyrim conquests. This also took place in the First Era, in the year 241, and it was led by King Vreg the Gifted, who is Ysgramor's grandson. So this was King Harold's son. So you had Ysgramor, then you had Harold, then you had Vreg. Okay? And within 50 years, this was almost like their crusades. Within 50 years, the Nords had built their first empire, and it spanned all of Skyrim, all of Morrowind, and most of High Rock at this point in time. Now, this kingdom lasted a long time. It lasted until the year 369 and ended with the assassination of King Borgus, which, if you recall from my Bosmer video, was killed during the first Bosmeric wild hunt. So, imagine a bunch of weird, shifty, misty, shadowy creatures literally coming out of the woods and, well, murdering his face. It is pretty much what happened. However, when the gathered Jarls of Skyrim, at that point in time, the Lords of Skyrim, couldn't choose a High King at a moot, Skyrim erupted into civil war. A civil war that lasted until the year 420 with the signing of the Pact of Chieftains, in which the Nords lost their holdings in Morrowind and High Rock, and Skyrim was divided into independent kingdoms. Now, in the year 700, the Nords did attempt to reconquer Morrowind, but were soundly rebuffed by the combined Shimmer and Dwemer forces, and from that point on, the Tribunal would keep the Nords out of Morrowind for thousands of more years to come. It was also during this era and this time that Alduin attempts to destroy the world the first time. This is when the battle takes place on top of the throat of the world. This is when the tongues realize they can't kill Alduin because they're not powerful enough to do so. So they rip open time using an Elder Scroll and they send him into the future, which turns out was all completely prophesized because the Dragonborn, your character in Skyrim, is ultimately the one who has to deal with Alduin. Doesn't actually kill him, but at least he puts him away for a little while until he's needed later. It was also during the failure of the tongues to destroy Alduin, which prompts Jurgen Windcaller to meditate on their failure, resulting in the discovery of the Way of the Voice. And at the very end of the first era, that's when the Akaviri landed in Skyrim. Okay, and they just cut straight through their armies all the way across until they were finally stopped at the Battle of Pale Pass by the combined Cyrodiilic and Nordic forces. But the Nords have very healthy respect for fighting. And so they saw the Akaviri as great warriors and were like bro-fisting and high-fiving each other. And they agreed to serve the Akaviri commander, who was, of course, Freeman Cyrodiil, who founded the Second Great Cyrodiilic Empire. And of course, we can't talk about the Nords without talking about Tiber Septim. Tiber Septim / Talos / Hjalti Earlybeard, whatever you want to call him, is probably the most well-known Nord in Tamrielic history. He was a Dragonborn. He created the greatest empire that Tamriel has ever known. Skyrim went willingly because, of course, Tiber Septim was a son of Skyrim. But that being said, there were still going to be conflicts. The Nords love to fight. There was the War of the Red Diamond in the year 120 of the Third Era, in which Skyrim supported the reign of Queen Patema instead of the Empire, and took 17 years to resolve that. And there was also the War of Bendermach during the Imperial Simulacrum, which was in the year 397, which saw Skyrim re-expand into High Rock, Hammerfell, and then turn their eyes once again to an unprotected Morrowind, because at this point in time the Tribunal had been killed. So there, and then of course you see where we are in the Fourth Era with the refugees, the orcs, the Dunmer, and the signing of the White Gold Concordat, leading us to where we are now. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to our mod, and you're absolutely going to love this one, I promise you. We're going back, guys, we're going back to Arena. Now, this mod is extraordinarily special. This mod is recently become very popular on the Nexus. This is called Legendary Cities, TES Arena, Skyrim Frontier Fortress by Jabber. Okay? And the thing you need to understand about this is, just think back for a second. How many of you have played through pretty much the entire Elder Scrolls series? Okay, so we know that parts of their very first, Bethesda's very first Elder Scrolls game, Arena, takes place in Skyrim. Well, you look at modern Skyrim, Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim game, and you look at some of these cities, and you recognize, obviously, some of the names, Windhelm and Whiterun and Winterhold and all of that, but what about some of these other places? Where did they go? Places that were on the map in Arena that just aren't there in Skyrim, and it's weird, right? Because you would think they would remember to put those in. Well, guess what? This mod is for you. This mod is great. It has gotten... It is well endorsed, it is beautifully well done, and it puts in those missing places, those missing cities. So you're looking for, you got your Sunguard and your Dunbar Wall back, and Granite Hall, Helyarkin Creek, all of those places are back. And the best part is that these aren't copy-pastes of cities that already exist. Jabber actually went through Like right here, we're in Amel City, and it looks unique. It looks like it's its own city. I mean, a lot of these types of mods, they just, put in some houses and, pave the road a little bit and things of that nature. But this mod is spectacular because it has uniquely named taverns and inns. It has shops, and it has its own NPCs. And it's not just a copy paste. It's not just, oh, I put some buildings here, that looks good, okay, let's put it on the Nexus. There's care taken here. There is a level of detail in this mod that is shocking. It doesn't look like anything you've already seen in Skyrim. Well, obviously there are going to be, some similarities because all the buildings are basically the same, right? That's fine, but the layouts are, for each of these cities, is completely unique. The mod uses the correct locations from the arena map. Yes, the correct locations from the arena map. This mod is fully nav matched, so if you have followers, they're not going to have a problem getting through the city. You're not going to lose them in some random ass location. They're not going to get stuck outside, and you're going to wonder what the hell happened to Serana. Where did that bitch go to this time? Like, that usually happens to me. And this isn't going to be a huge drain on your frames per second either. Obviously, the better your computer is, the better off you're going to be, but this isn't going to affect your playability at all. Lots of high-res HD textures. I mean, just look at this place. I mean, look at it. This looks like a city built around a lumber ruin. Exactly, right? And they've incorporated things into the mod that, we're just kind of out in the middle of nowhere. You remember Nightgate Inn? That little inn that is literally in the middle of nowhere, and you have no idea where this person's getting any business from, because who would stop here? It's literally next to nothing. It's in a town now. It's great. It's perfect. It's so friendly, and you've got everything you could possibly need in any of these cities. You're going to have all of your shrines represented. You're going to have all of your crafting stations, your alchemy stations, your leatherworking stations, your smithing stations. I mean, and it is all functional, lore friendly. You're not going to have the TARDIS effect here, where it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. It is, however, important to note that this is still a work in progress. Not all of the cities are available right now. I mean, look at the level of the detail of this. There's signs on the walls stating, who was responsible for this land and what happened to this city, and so on and so forth. Now, a list of the cities you're going to see are on the mod page on Skyrim Nexus, but you're definitely going to get Amel. Blackmore is there. So is Malton. That one might be a little hard for you to find. That's why I didn't show everything on here of how to get to everywhere, but I wanted to leave you some secrets. North Keep and Heljarkin Creek and Granite Keep. Vernon Wood is there, but there really isn't a description for it. It's a beautiful mod, and it is extraordinarily well done, and I recommend it for every Skyrim game. So those of you who are playing on console need to hurry up and get your butts over to the PC, because this mod is totally worth it. Okay, that's it for me this week. Please feel free to subscribe below, like my videos, and come back here in another couple weeks, and I'll have another one of these up here for you. Have a good week, and I will see you next time. Bye.